Hey YouTube, Ryu here. Uh, a person ended up watching one of my videos because I had gone ahead and shared it on Twitter, and they ended up saying that me complaining about the hunters made me just as bad as warlock users. They were saying that hunters were completely overpowered and they needed a nerf and all of that, which there were some moves with the hunter that, yeah, were a little on the overpowered side, and I agreed that they needed to be nerfed. I was even saying it as a hunter that those moves needed to be nerfed. But there's a difference between nerfing a few moves to balance out a character and completely changing how a character works. Now, there are people out there that have no problems going with a cookie cutter and going, oh, well, you just go with this shot rotation and it works fine. Okay, well, what if I'm wanting to, play in my own way? What if I'm not wanting to have to do that shot rotation and be completely reliant on whether or not the shot hits? What if I want to go ahead and have multiple avenues to take based off of the composition of my team? And that's the problem with the whole cookie cutter aspect of it. If one person doesn't know how to do their job, everyone fails. And I think that it's funny because when I ended up replying to this person, I asked them what their main was. They were a warlock, and they said that they were sick and tired of people bitching about warlocks being overpowered when warlocks have their weaknesses. Yeah, you know what their weakness is getting one shot. That's pretty much it. I mean, basically they have to not be paying attention. That's their weakness, is them having ADD. And that's not a weakness of the warlock character, that's the weakness of the person playing the warlock. I mean, hell, there were battlegrounds that I walked in and a warlock that wasn't even at level cap ended up walking in and literally raffle stomping entire teams of people. Because no one could even land a hit on that warlock. And if someone was lucky enough to land a hit on the warlock just healed. I've seen multiple battlegrounds happen like that in the past. Now, I don't know how warlocks are right now. And I don't know if this person realized that I was talking about the character balances when Cataclysm had been out for less than a month. Because I didn't even play that expansion for more than a month. But the thing that pissed me off about the change with hunters, I want to go ahead and be clear on this, is the hunters were basically made into weaker rogues. Let's just be honest. They became rogues that had pets. That was it. I mean, honestly, if you had a rogue become a pet, there would be almost no difference between them and the hunter. Especially if a hunter went survival aspect. If they went survival spec on their hunter, they were literally a rogue with a pet that had some pretty decent traps. I mean, those were really the only differences. I mean, melee focused, and now you have now you have the energy system instead of a mana system. And that was the thing that really pissed me off. It was just them taking away the mana and putting in that shitty that shitty energy system. I mean, let's just be clear here. They could have taken away Barrage, but left the mana system. I would have been fine. I would have found ways around it. Barrage was nice for when you had those mass group enemies. All right, fine. I'll find a way around it. I'm going to take a slight hit to my DPS, but I'll figure out a way. But when you limit me on what shots I can do at points in a battle, you're literally forcing that cookie cutter. That is the death of games. When they force people to play a specific way. Unless it's a game that's meant to be insanely difficult. But even Dark Souls didn't do that. With Dark Souls, there were plenty of ways of getting around enemies. You just had to figure out what worked for you. But that you're going to play this the way we want you to play it, that's shit that's relegated to single player modes in games. You should never have that in an MMO. At any point. And people are wondering why World of Warcraft has a dwindling user base. Well, for one, people are getting so sick and tired of getting the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. It's wearing thin. People are tired of the cookie cutter. They got tired of that right quick and in a hurry. Like I said in my previous videos, you know, I had a large guild. I mean, a very large guild. We were one of the largest on our server, if not the largest. In fact, we were the largest at one point. I don't know how long we kept that. I wasn't really keeping track, even though I was the guild leader. I personally didn't have any concerns as far as how many people we had in the guild, but more of the quality of characters that we had in our guild. In my guild, if you were a troublemaker, you got kicked out right quick and in a hurry. If you were someone that stole gear, if you were someone who didn't ever contribute, and I'm not saying we had dues, because we didn't, and people were saying, hey, why don't you go ahead and have dues? I'm like, look, if you want to have a self-imposed due, then go for it. We're not going to say, oh no, we're not going to accept this. Because we use that money to go ahead and help lower level players, you know, get gear and get up to level. To fund runs for them. So that way, you know, higher level characters could go through, run them, and not get hampered down. As far as their grind was concerned. We used the money for crafting, for good items, for our raids. We were actually acting like a guild is supposed to act. But the thing is when I left, I know that at least 7 other major players in our guild were leaving at the same time. They weren't playing as hunters. I was the primary hunter in our guild. I was one of the only ones that could solo as a hunter and do it effectively. I was one of our only drag hunters. And if anyone wants to know what a drag hunter is, no, it doesn't mean I'm dressing in shit that's meant for the opposite gender. I mean, it's... I would literally drag people through so they could go ahead and get gear, even though they weren't experienced in the raid. Basically, they just stood off to the side, out of the way. But I know that several other major players were leaving. I kept in contact with a few people that were in the guild. And less than a month after I left, the guild was down to a quarter of what it was. Because of people quitting the game. Not just quitting the guild, quitting the game. They weren't quitting the guild and going to another guild. they were flat out stopping playing. And one of the people that stayed, that I gave the guild to, that I gave full run of the guild to, they kept doing the same thing that I was doing. You know, they kept what the guild stood for in the guild. So the only thing that changed was World of Warcraft pissed off a lot of its high-end players. And for what? What, to appease the warlocks because they were getting sick and tired of getting their asses handed to them by hunters that actually figured out how to use the class to their advantage? It's kind of funny that someone who plays as a horde warlock is bitching about an alliance hunter bitching about their character getting nerfed into the dirt. That's it's ironic, really. Since horde warlocks are the most overpowered things in the game, at least as far as the last time I was playing. Horde warlocks were able to raffle stomp. They didn't even have to really put in any effort. They didn't have to show any skill. Not in Battlegrounds. I don't know about in dungeons, because those same tactics aren't exactly going to work out too well for them. But at this point, it only serves to prove my point when people sit there and try to say, oh, well, you're no better than. No, the thing is I have legitimate gripes. There's a reason why I refuse to ever play World of Warcraft again. Blizzard screwed up. And it wasn't just with hunters. It was just with the game in general. The game... They stopped innovating. They started going ahead and just throwing shit out there for people. For the rabid fans. For the ones who lived and breathed that game and no other game existed to them. They were just throwing out crap content after crap content after crap content. And then they decided to go ahead and slap those same people in the face. Those people that had that dedication. Like when they decided, hey, you know what? We're going to limit you on your 40-man raids. You can only go ahead and you can run each dungeon once a week. If you don't get that super rare drop, well, better luck next week. It was so frustrating. And then they had it where people would get punished. Like let's say, you know, someone went in to a raid with a looking for group. I don't care if it was a one man party raid or a 40-man. Doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is, if you went in and your healer quit out or your tank quit out just before the final boss because they got frustrated or they mismanaged their time or whatever happens, then you have to sit there and try to get someone to come in to take on the hardest fight in that dungeon to only have a chance at that one roll, not get a chance at any of the other items that happen. Not exactly a winning deal for those people. with a good chance of them not making enough money to go ahead and cover their repair costs. And if you weren't able to find someone who was stupid enough to come in and help out, or selfless enough, I'm not going to necessarily say stupid, but selfless enough to come through and help out with that, everyone who was involved in that initial party is now screwed for the week. Had several occasions where that one happened to me. And it got to the point where I stopped raiding. Because I wasn't going to do that to the people in my guild. I put the offer out there. I'd be like, look, there's no pressure. I'm not going to think any less of you if you don't reply or if you outright say no. Every once in a while, we would get someone from my guild that would come in and do it. But for the most part, no. And I understood it. But I mean, then not to mention them basically making crafting absolutely worthless. That was another big issue. And I know that a lot of MMOs have that problem. I've addressed it in previous videos. I'm not going to go ahead and go back into another long rant about that and repeat myself. But I'm actually thinking about making a World of Warcraft how it fucked up video. I know it would piss off a lot of Blizzard fans, a lot of World of Warcraft specific fans. There's, for some odd reason, World of Warcraft, I mean, sitting there and saying something negative about it, you're going to get a lot of people saying, oh yeah, you're absolutely right, and then you're going to get a lot of people telling you to go kill yourself. But the thing is World of Warcraft is very far from perfect, and it's getting farther from perfect as time goes on. It's not going to be around for much longer because Blizzard doesn't know what the hell it's doing anymore. And it's refusing to listen to the fans. It's funny that there were more people on that unofficial vanilla server that they went ahead and got shut down playing the game than in their main game with all the expansions. It's kind of telling. Because the World of Warcraft today is not World of Warcraft. It's World of Cookie Cutter. The original World of Warcraft was so much better. Yeah, you didn't have as high of a level cap. Alright, fine. But at least it was fun. It was enjoyable. It was a challenge as well. And for some odd reason, Blizzard has this idea that challenge equals how long does it take to do something. That isn't challenge. That's grind. There's a big difference. And I will address that in the World of Warcraft video. But to anyone who sits there and says that I'm as bad as one of these warlocks that bitched and whined and pissed and moaned when they got one of the only nerfs that they ever got, and it was such a slight nerf that they could easily exploit around. No. Because their characters have at never point been rendered absolutely worthless. And I think it's very telling that a lot of the Blizzard employees that play the game just so happen to play as Horde Warlocks. And that's the one thing that they're not willing to nerf. And how Horde characters who already had insanely overpowered abilities got buffs to their abilities, while the Alliance, who already had basically utility abilities, got nerfed into the dirt. I don't understand how there's an equivalence there. How is that fair? Strengthen one side that's already got the upper hand, and then weaken the already weaker side. That's not balance. That's favoritism. And Blizzard is very, very guilty of a lot of favoritism in that game. And that's one of the main things that's killing it. That and them wanting to have such a strong say in how people play the game that they're willing to throw any kind of uniqueness under the bus to preserve that status quo. So have a good night, YouTube. I'll probably go ahead and make that video. It might be a multi-part video. I try to keep my videos under a half an hour. This one's going to be ending a little bit on the earlier side, but that's just because right now I'm a little bit on the tired side. I might go ahead and record the video tonight. I'm not sure, but all right, everyone, take care of yourselves. If you have anything to add, go ahead and add it in the comments. I'd love to hear arguments either way, whether you agree with me or you disagree with me, but actually go ahead and bring up some level of fact. I mean, you can even go with your personal experiences, but don't sit there and just say you're wrong because I say so. Because like I said, I won't engage with people like that. You have to give me a reason. You have to try to convince me to change my position. I have my position for a reason. I've put forward my arguments. So now I'm giving you a chance to put forward yours. It's very simple. Take care. Be safe. I'll talk to you all later.